In this video, I want to give you a quick summary of the top 10 things you need to know about with the release of the FileMaker 19.3 platform. The first thing you need to know, as a reminder, is that Claris has historically released major releases once a year and done bug fixes kind of periodically during the course of the year. Claris changed this process back in 2020, where they started to issue rolling releases. So every 3 months or so, or about 4 times a year, a major release would come out with new features in it, bug fixes in it, and other capabilities that you would only normally see once a year, typically in May. So item number 1 is an important reminder, and that is that updates come out about every 3 months. Now, the second thing to understand, which is kind of important, is that you can mix similar versions of the FileMaker platform together. So say you're using FileMaker Server 18 or 19.0, you can have clients that are using, say, for example, 19.3 or vice versa. The general rule of thumb is within one whole version. The next thing to know is that there are major improvements for all the products. And the first of these I'll mention is dramatically improved performance if you're using Apple Silicon-based processors. So the M1 class of processors, they have some interesting design changes. And so as Apple moves away from Intel towards their own processors, there are huge performance benefits to doing that for Apple users. Now, there are a lot of tests you can run, but if you take an average of all the tests that can be performed, generally you're going to see a performance improvement of about double. In fact, a little over double if you average all the tests out. If you're interested in more information on the tests, check out 24U and their blog on performance testing. However, if you don't want to get down in the weeds, just understand that 19.3 on an Apple Silicon-based computer is about twice as fast as the equivalent computer running on Intel. And because of this, if you upgrade to 19.3 and you're on an Apple Silicon processor, you need to make sure that you download updated plugins, updated ODBC drivers, any external technology that you are using with FileMaker 19.3, that needs to be updated. Check with the manufacturers of those plugins to get the latest releases that are also optimized for Apple Silicon and 19.3. Now, for Windows users, there's a major update that's made available because changes from Microsoft and also changes from Claris, and that is the built-in browser integration that's part of the FileMaker platform. Well, on Windows, that's no longer based on Internet Explorer 11. Due to the changes from Microsoft and Claris, the built-in web viewer, which gives you direct interactive access to JavaScript-based applications and other tools and capabilities, that's all based now in Edge or Chromium, which is effectively a modern library that's driving that web browser that's inside of the FileMaker platform. So no longer are the Windows users stuck with using some really ancient IE11 technology under the hood. The next major thing to be aware of is that Claris updated FileMaker Server for Mac and Windows, and those are fairly predictable updates. However, 19.2, the previous release, was designed for use with the CentOS operating system, which due to some licensing shenanigans by Red Hat is no longer a viable operating system, and most people are now being forced to move off of CentOS over the long term to some other operating system. So Claris made this jump immediately without waiting. They jumped into supporting Ubuntu 18.04. which means that that version of Ubuntu will be supported for a number of years in the future. Now, the next thing you should be aware of are the supported operating systems for this release. And here I have a little bit of good news. No operating systems have been deprecated by Claris, which basically means that everything that 19.2 ran on will also run 19.3. Historically, about once a year, Claris quits supporting an older Macintosh operating system, and every once in a while, they'll chop off support for an older version of Windows. So FileMaker Pro for the Macintosh is going to support 10.14, Mojave, 10.15 Catalina, and Mac OS 11, which is Big Sur. Similarly, on the Windows side, FileMaker Pro in Windows is only 64-bit and runs on Windows 8.1, Standard or the Pro release, once again 64-bit only, or Windows 10 Enterprise or Pro release, 64-bit there as well. So no 32-bit support on the Windows side. For FileMaker Server, you have the same operating system support, 10.14, 10.15, 11.0. For Linux support, you have Ubuntu 18.04. And for FileMaker Server for Windows, you're looking at Windows Server 2016 or 2019. The next thing you need to know is that there are a number of upgraded functions and capabilities within the FileMaker 19.3 platform release. The JSON functions have gone through some improvements, so you need to check that out if you're a FileMaker developer. There's also some additional support for plugins with JSON and some additional capabilities for getting information about add-ons. Add-ons is really great third-party blocks of code. They're like modular blocks of capabilities that you can drag and drop into your FileMaker solution. Super cool. So Claris continues to support that in many ways. There's also been upgraded changes to the Git system platform and Git application architecture. The next thing you need to know, and I guess it should be obvious at this point, is that there are not a lot of brand new raw features within the platform. The 19.3 release is largely about performance tuning, bug fixes, security fixes, and of course, as a developer, that makes me very happy. There is one new function that has to do with machine learning. It's the Git model attributes. So if you're working to integrate machine learning on the iOS or on the Mac OS, there's a new function there that you can call. Now, along the lines of performance improvements beyond the Apple Silicon, there's improvements to the data API capabilities, improvements to the Java web publishing capabilities. Card-style windows are now faster. CSS cache is recycled more efficiently within WebDirect, resulting in performance improvements. There's additional improvements to the code that drives the concurrency and concurrency linked queue, which is really great, and some other very technical performance improvements I'm not going to dive into here, but feel free to check out the 19.3 engineering blog, which brings me to the next item. Claris has released several engineering blogs which provide additional details on the capabilities of 19.3. I highly recommend you check these out. Most people are not aware of Claris's engineering blog. It's really quite good. It's something that Claris had kind of started and stopped and started and stopped over the last 30 years. But the engineering group there has kind of re-energized and is writing some really good documentation in these blogs that's very helpful to FileMaker developers. Now, the next item I want to point out are security fixes based upon the internal libraries within the FileMaker platform. A lot of FileMaker is proprietary, but it does use some open source technology, libraries, and programming that's already been built by other companies that's available, and Claris uses that to make FileMaker even better. Well, a lot of these underlying libraries are updated periodically, especially in terms of security and preventing hackers from gaining access to systems. And so there's some important security improvements in the 19.3 release. Now, once again, this is a fairly technical list, and I don't want to spend a lot of time on it here, but it's important to understand that if you're one of those people or organizations that doesn't like to update their versions of FileMaker, understand that you're not getting valuable security updates. And in the world that we live in, where pipelines and power plants and water treatment systems are being hacked and ransomware by nefarious individuals, you want to keep your security up to date. And importantly, you want to keep FileMaker up to date because that gets you improved security. And the next thing to understand is Claris is bringing a number of mission-critical, customer-facing bug fixes into this release. And of course, most people assume that Claris hears about bugs, someone writes up a bug, submits it to them, and they fix the bug. But additionally, Claris engineers are directly engaging with customers who have run into bugs that are critical, and these bugs are not easy to work around, or maybe these bugs are potential showstoppers. So Claris engineers have been working with some key customers to identify mission-critical issues, incorporate those fixes, then have the customers test those fixes, and if the fixes are successful, we get the benefit of those fixes in the next rolling release, making the platform much better. Now, the next item that's useful to know about is that Claris is listening to customers, and every once in a while, a feature gets removed from the platform or from a product, and customers kind of vent back to Claris about that. Maybe they're not happy about it, etc. And so Claris does listen. And in the case of FileMaker Server and also FileMaker Cloud, Claris has brought back the ability to read the server logs directly within the web administrative interface for both the cloud and for FileMaker Server. So as a quick summary, if you're using FileMaker Server, Mac, Windows, or Linux, or FileMaker Cloud, as that server is running, it's opening files, it's backing files up, it's talking to clients, it's logging clients out, etc. All those activities are being written to a text log, and normally you have to go into the server and hunt down the log and find it. And way back in the old days, you could read these logs within the web interface of the server. Well, that feature's been gone for a while, but it's back now. So Claris is listening, and they brought back an important feature. That's the ability to read these logs and to look for issues or investigate a problem within the web interface for administering the FileMaker server or the FileMaker cloud.